Welcome to the first ever eSports Racing Canada podcast. I'm Blip. This is Daniel Blanco, and we're coming at you today with all kinds of information about sim racing in Canada. This is what this podcast is going to be all about. Daniel, tell us, we had this in the works for a long time. What is this going to be all about?
Loaded question. Well, the future of it, I'd like it to be exactly like what you mentioned. Kind of going across what's happening in the country, where our top drivers are racing, teams they're racing for, competitions they're racing in, maybe even leagues that they might be in, so that we could give some exposure to some top level private or even, competitive leagues. At some point I want to kind of cover who our top communities are, as well, like have guests in from not just like Canada, but like I'm sure we could talk to other ASNs and their staff members and drivers from around the world at some point. I think that'd be pretty cool to get an idea of how other racing cultures operate, how they've developed, how different they are than what kind of challenges we have in Canada. Because I think one of the main challenges we have here is we're all so far apart. So it's kind of like I think I want to use the podcast to unite people. But I think with what we've built here, it's going to start small. I think we're just going to chit chat about what we got going on here. I kind of think that we should, like me and you discussed so many times before we hit record just now, I think we're just going to take it casual for the next 5, 6, however many times we do this, and just chit chat about the community we've built, what they're doing, what the coaches are up to. We'll talk about that a little bit later on with Porsche North America, and see what else we could squeeze in, and then see what the community thinks, and see if they bring any ideas to us, like, hey, that was kind of cool, or hey, the guys, that sucked, and it'd be a lot better if you guys did this or that or whatever.
Yeah, we want to grow this with the community, and that's exactly it.
Yeah. I don't know, or maybe I do have like a clear goal in mind. I don't know. I feel like I described it. I want to cover national efforts. Like if we did this back when we had HIP, for example, right? Like, and that huge charity event that they do every year. Like that is something I'd love to just spend a whole segment talking about. But anyway,
and like later on today's show, we're gonna have the coaches coming in talking about PECNA.
Yes.
That's going to be something. So we will get into that sort of stuff as well.
So right, that was a good reminder. I think I need to tell the viewers that today's podcast will just be this brief intro into what the podcast is going to be for now, which is super casual. What I aim for it to turn into, which is much more formal and informative about what's going on across the country, our efforts, international efforts, blah blah blah. That's all way further down the road, I think. Then we're going to tell you guys a little bit about ourselves, what we have going on in the program that we've built so far. Even though it's very community based at the moment, it's still very meaningful for those who are involved. And then we're going to have a really interesting section where we have some of the coaches come in and talk about Porsche North America, their experiences in sim racing, their experiences in real life racing. And then we're just going to chit chat about some of the stuff we have going on here. We're going to pick apart, who we are, what we do, the promo that has built up, most of what we have, the services we offer, what the coaches do, what we're trying to aim for. And then I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to like what we're doing with the development league and all the racing series that we have. So I'd love to give them some visibility and just like talk about some of the drivers that have been participating with us and the leagues that we've run. So I'm very proud of everyone who's done footwork into the league. So I think we should spitball about what we have going on here, and then that will be it.
Tell you firsthand, the growth has been amazing. What we've seen so far.
Yes. So that is now what people are going to expect with this effort, whatever we want to call this effort.
And this has been budding for a long time, because so time just flies so much, and I think back and I'm like, when we first started talking about ERC, because I came in from the outside. I mean, obviously you've been involved since the beginning. I came in when it was still a pretty young effort. Like it's still young by terms of years, but it's just that it's grown so much. But I mean, like when things were small, and I came in, I did an iRacing promotion video because again, it was all about the $10 iRacing codes, which was huge. Then you contacted me, we started talking, and I got involved, and I feel like wow, the scope of everything. I mean, the community, the services that ERC offers, it's just grown so much.
Yeah. Do you remember when I reached out to you?
I do, and I think it was when I was actually.
I don't remember.
I think it was when I was trying to get a code, and I feel like it was maybe in 2023, late 2023.
Yeah, you came through the promo,
yeah,
and then you made the video, right?
That's it, exactly.
So how did I reach back out to you?
And I think you contacted me on my YouTube channel. I think you were commenting on a video. We basically. You told me just email me. We got together at that point. We started going back and forth by email, and I think that's how it happened. But again,
do you know the time, date? Do you remember?
It's a couple of years ago now, and I think that's why it seems like it's not really that far. It's 2 years, but it seems like
the first one to promote.
Yeah,
us outside.
Yeah, exactly.
You were the first one. As far as I know, you were ahead of Overtake GG. I think did a bit on the FIA promo, like globally, like just the fact that they have that each country participates in their own capacity. I'm pretty sure, but you were the first, at least, that came across my eyes that covered it in general.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen it.
Because you came through it.
Exactly, I hadn't seen it otherwise, and really I found it because it was on your Reddit post that where like the legendary Blankinators Reddit post. where it really blew up and like that's but yeah, but you know what, we laugh, but people love you on there because you gave them $10 iRacing, and like that post blew up. It went viral.
Oh yeah,
and that's where it was, and you being super responsive, and I think that's one of the main things that attracted me to joining up with the group and getting to know you guys, was that like it was really open. There was no toxicity. It was really open communication, and that's kind of how this whole thing started. So it's definitely been a couple of years for sure.
Yeah. So that means then that it might have been 24, like our first run at it.
It definitely was.
Okay. Wow. So do you remember then when you came into the Discord? I'm glad that we didn't talk about this off camera, because these are genuine questions I've been meaning to ask you for a long time. So this wasn't part of the script. But do you remember, like, metric wise, like what did our Discord look like when you joined? That feels like so far in the past now.
I remember when I joined, you had just it's like kind of like cemented in my memory here, but you had just made a post saying, guys, if we do a racing league. Okay, and you gotta remember, like, we're doing all kinds of stuff now. At that time, it was if we do a racing league, where like what kind of cars are we gonna drive? And people were voting on what? And I believe I think there was something like 12 or 13 votes. It was something like tiny, okay, at the time. Right. And I just remember coming in, and when I posted for the first time, because then we had talked. I didn't join right away, and when I did join, you were like, Blip, you finally made it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here, guys. And the community was still so small. There was just a few channels. Now you go in there and wow, it's just like there's just channels for all kinds of stuff going on. So that's
wow, that's crazy. So you came in, that must have been about a year ago, because I think a year ago today we didn't have any racing efforts at all that were live. I think we kind of turned community night into development league July. Oh man, I can't remember. Sometime in the summer of last year. Maybe it was August even. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, this was
a while back. Yeah.
That's a while back. So I feel like I had another question there, but okay, let's we'll see if that comes back to me. So that's how we met.
Yep.
You made quite a helpful video. I remember that I started getting. It wasn't shortly after. It was quite a ways after, but once me and you had started talking and that we were in constant communication, or some constant for us is
Yeah.
like leaving each other on red for weeks at a
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
is I started getting Blip match in the how did you find about this promo as people came in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's actually like really helping us out. This is pretty sweet. And then of course, like then other people started covering the promo, and we started seeing people refer to Overtake, and I think the YouTuber, their Traxer or whoever he is. Excuse me. Anyway, other creators covered it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was around. Oh yeah, it must have been around a year ago. I
Oh
think.
yeah, it was at least a year ago because I'm pretty sure the original video was in 24.
Yeah.
Can actually check.
Unfortunately,
I
I
can
don't know if
actually.
I really get referred back to your video much anymore. There was a strong pocket there where your video was the one trending for people.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think now there's just a few more of them and stuff like that. But it's yeah, it was definitely like I was getting a lot of questions. A lot of people were sending me comments, messages, and
Yeah.
saying like, hey, like where is this? And I'm just like, talk
It
to
was a big
Daniel,
moment
people.
for us.
This
It was the
is
first time we were
yeah,
covered by someone. So
yeah.
okay, so before we go too far down to the weeds, there, let's introduce ourselves. So I'll start real quick. Then you could jump into sort of your background. Your background's pretty interesting as well. But so I'm 30 years old. I've been sim racing since I was 10. I started off with well, I grew up like I was a car guy, but then when you're a car guy and you want to watch racing, you're always like force fed Formula One. And then I remember my uncle one time was over at my grandma's place, and I was just playing with my cars on the ground, and he was like, "You ever watched NASCAR?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And he put on. I swear it was either Trois Rivières or the Toronto GP. I want to say it was Toronto, the Indy at Toronto, and I just saw these guys like hopping over curbs and the attitudes of the cars, and they were like, you could tell there was wheel spin right as they get up to the wall, and you could see them sawing at the wheel, and I was like, this is ballistic. And like Andrew Ranger was battling with some guy, and his fender was flying off, and like I was like, holy crap, this is incredible. So so that started me watching stock car racing. Then I remember seeing like dirt games, like dirt racing games in like what were those things called, like EB games, and there was another one there that I remember buying my first racing game at. But anyway, uh, once I started seeing like, oh, I could go drive them on the PC. I think my first one was a dirt oval game. Couldn't even tell you what it was. Then once I got competitive in that, I wanted something else, and then eventually I worked my way to R Factor, R Factor One, and
Yes.
then actually I jumped over one. I went from the dirt racing game to NASCAR Thunder 2004. And that was a really interesting period of time because I spent a lot of time racing on that sim because it was quite realistic ish, but it was also quite competitive. There was a lot of leagues and I met some great people racing there. One of them I still talk to. So David, who helps us
Right. Yeah.
running the Stock Car Development League, David Nannon, I've known him, I'm pretty sure, since I was 12 years old. Like it's got to be right around there, 12, 13, something around there. God, somewhere like that. Okay. And we met on NASCAR there in 2004. So then we started racing together. I started racing in his league. Then we started creating leagues together. There was a point in time, like as we moved into like NASCAR Thunder and then to R Factor, and then there was a R Factor called VHR. We did a bunch of oval stuff there, and there was days where like it'd be strange where if I didn't talk to him for one day, like every day I get home from school and I go on the computer, talk to David, and race with him. So that it was like that guy's been around for. I bet you I've talked to him more than I've talked to anyone else in my life. I bet you. That's really crazy.
Wow.
So anyway, so I jumped over to R Factor, drove on R Factor for a long time, drove in a big league back in the day called Race to Play. It was kind of like low field motorsports today, if you kind of think about some stuff that's still out there, before iRacing existed. And it was a huge league, international league. It was awesome because I raced against a bunch of people from all over the world, plenty of South Americans, plenty of Europeans. It really gave me a taste of what mattered in different cultures, and just the appreciation that, a Croatian was extremely excited to race with a Canadian or an American, and an Argentinian was very appreciative of being accepted by anyone from North America. And it just opened my eyes to like stigmas and all these things at a young age. And I made so many great friends through my time at Race to Play. Race to Play dissolved, I think, back in 2015 or 2016 or something. Then, of course, once I hit my teen and early 20s, I think we all kind of lose time on the rig. I used to be on the rig all the time and like driving somewhat competitively, organizing racing and just being in the spin cycle of things. And then like real life hits in, you're like, well, I got to go find jobs and do stuff. And I wasn't the smarty pants kid. Like I went to go work on cars in college, and then I was like, I don't know if school's for me. So throughout my 20s, I feel like I kind of got a bit disconnected from sim racing. I was just kind of driving casually. I didn't drive all that much. I didn't upgrade my stuff. I was just kind of like working my way through life and partying and just whatever, just trying to have some fun. And then a few years ago, a buddy of mine who I met through Race to Play, and I used to organize racing that he used to race in, called Eric Strane. He reached out and was like, hey, ASN Canada is interested in getting involved in eSports, and I don't know if you're still in the game, but do you want to think about trying to kickstart this program? And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot you worked for the FIA. Damn. I was like, hell yeah, man. Are you kidding me? Like I've always kind of wanted to contribute to the sport in Canada like that. That's kind of like, hell yeah, I'll do that. And that was right around this time 2 years ago. I think it was April 24. I might be wrong, but I think it was right around then where I had my first meeting with everybody. So and now I feel like I'm much more connected. I'm not racing on a G27. I got some upgrades. I'm looking at a 49-inch monitor now, so I'm pretty happy with it. But I feel like I'm back in touch with things. I feel like I don't drive as much as I want to, but that's a bit of my history. Certainly an oval guy, not really a road guy. I was trying to learn that as I grew, but started on the dirt ovals. Then I kind of became a stock car dude, and I don't know. I feel like now I'm kind of used to it, but the transition between R Factor and iRacing was tough back in the day. But yeah, now I feel like I'm pretty well connected, and that's pretty much me caught right back up. And I do know that you have a lot to add too. So now I'm curious, where do you want to start for yourself?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, obviously anybody who is over here from my Blip Match channel will know me. Well, my name's Kevin, but I mean, a lot of people just call me Blip. But basically, yeah, I started that channel about, I would say now, God, it's probably 5 years ago now. And this idea here we had of starting this new channel is because, we talked about, I'm transitioning to a few other things. I have other hobbies, right? I love motorsports. I love cars, but I also do a lot of board game stuff, and I do some of it as like paid work as well. So for that, I'm kind of transitioning that channel to that. But this one here, Blip Match Racing, is going to be all about sim racing games on PC, consoles, whatever, just general motorsport stuff. I'm even going to post like real world stuff here. But really where it all started for me was kind of the same thing as you as a kid, and it's just like that family influence, right? And my dad is a licensed mechanic. He's been licensed since like the 70s. So like he got me into cars. So like he'd take me go-karting. It was really growing up in a sort of, even though like I'm an only child, it was just my mom and dad and I, it was still like a racing family. Like if the Daytona 500 was on, my dad was watching it. Well, he'd fall asleep halfway through, but he was like watching the Daytona 500, and in the morning when I'd wake up, it was I'd hear the sound of like the V10 F1 cars, from like the late right. 90s era, because, and then half the time I didn't know if it was like women's curling or that, because you'd hear like these high pitched sounds, and I was like, what? Right. And then I get in the living room, I'm like, oh yeah, it's F1, right? And I'd sit down and I'd watch that. So it was just like this passion for like motorsports, for cars, that started early. I'd see my dad working on cars. That always got me fired up. And I would say for me, the sim racing started off when sim racing was not really, there was not much sim in it. Like I think the biggest sim we had was Indianapolis 500, the simulation, because I'm 36. So like I got a feud. We're almost the same age, but a little bit of a spread. And that was basically the most realistic thing you had, where you could change setups on cars and all that. Yeah. And it was pretty much like a 2D, 3D game. It wasn't quite there. I don't know how to explain it, but it was low graphics, but you could actually change cars. You could change the boost on the cars. Exactly, yeah. And it was just like, so my game that I used to play was called Mario Andretti's Racing Challenge, and it was basically you'd go from sprint cars to modifieds to stock cars. You kind of would get a sample of everything all the way through. And there was like tracks like Le Mans, Daytona. They were all in there, and obviously it wasn't like with the fidelity of everything today, but it was there. And so I kind of started on that. Then I transitioned to Papyrus IndyCar Racing. That was like, I think, one of the first IndyCar games where you could do ovals and you could do road courses, and that might even have been before the kart IRL sort of break, right, where they separated. Because I feel like they had everything in there. Like I'd have to check that. And then NASCAR Racing 2. So that was really the three games that kind of got it going for me. And then eventually we transitioned over to consoles. So then there was Forza Motorsports, there was Gran Turismo. So I kind of just, with the passion for cars, I just kind of all the time wanted to play anything with cars. Like it just didn't matter, because me, as much as it is about the visual of the cars, I'm a sound person. So like I love just the sound of the cars, all that stuff. And even though it wasn't that great back then, it was still really cool, right?
Yeah.
So then about in 2000, and I would say it was 2008, 2009. So I was probably like somewhere around 18 years old or something like that. So my uncle, him and his buddy started this company where they were trying to make, so it was his friend that had an idea to make this simulator where they were essentially trying to recreate what VR is today. Okay, because back then there was no VR in 08, 09, or if it did exist, it was like super expensive, unaffordable for most of us. So it was essentially a projector screen that was curved, and it was a pretty cool idea, like for the time. And you could actually, so you'd just be sitting in there and imagine what these ultra wide screens are now, right? That's kind of what this was, but with a projector, because they didn't really have that then. So you'd be sitting in the rig, and the seat, the pedals, everything, all that, and then you'd be looking left and right, and the screen was curved around you, so the image was like on the side. So it was a really innovative idea. Unfortunately, it didn't kind of stand the test of time, just because there was issues with it, with like the quality with the projector and all that, and of course it got overtaken. But it was a pretty cool idea, and they did sell a few of them. And but really they brought me in. They said, Kev, you're the only one that really has like an elevated level of experience with like all kinds of different sims and all these different, because like you mentioned, R Factor, that was one that I played as well later on around that time. And so they brought me in and they said, hey, like, do you want to try this? So I would go down to the US and I'd go visit, and I wasn't paid, but like I had all my accommodations were paid for, my food was paid for, so I was happy, right? I was 18, I was traveling, it was fun. I would get to go to racetracks, because really with my dad and some of my uncles and stuff and my cousins, we'd go to drag racing, right? NHRA, it was fun, but I'd never really been to any sort of sports car racing. It was a world that was like a little distant for me, but I always loved like racing with different types of cars, not just like one type, right? Where you got like Porsches and Ferraris and whatever.
Anything
so
with the motor and wheels on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm obsessed with it. Yeah.
So I decided to just I went 2 feet into it, and I remember the sim we were showcasing the most at the time was R Factor with the Porsche Cup mod. I don't remember which era it was, like you know Porsche's probably better than me, but it was basically like whichever era it was, and like so we'd be doing like Mid-Ohio, all that, and it was cool with the projector screen doing like some of those hills at Mid-Ohio and stuff, and some of these really cool tracks. And so we actually got in a collaboration with iRacing, which was brand new at the time. So I got to see iRacing at the birth, okay, like right when it was brand new. And it was like, not to like throw out any insults, but compared to what it is now, when you go back to then and to now, man, it was like, oof, it was terrible, right? But it had to start somewhere, right? Everything was there, but at the time, as far as we say it was terrible then, it was on par with and at the top of what was available back then.
I remember it came out I want to say it was after R Factor 2 or around the same time or within the same 12-month period of time. And it was a tough decision for me. Like, do I want to do R Factor 2 that looks and feels complete? Yep. Or do I want to go into iRacing that feels foreign, looks foreign, don't really hear a lot of great things about it? Yeah. And I just remember that being kind of like the tough decision like a lot of people were having to make, where you could mod things over on R Factor 2, and the R Factor 1 scene was great. It was very competitive. There wasn't too many other options. There was, I don't even know. I don't think Race Room was around then. Like,
no, I think I started playing GTR Evolution maybe around 09 or something.
I remember GTR 2 being a thing. Like,
yeah,
it was R Factor 2 or iRacing, and it was like
pretty
tough.
much.
I tried R Factor 2, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this one either. But then for the oval scene, everyone was going to iRacing, and that's kind of where I was like wanting to stay, was in the oval scene. And I remember just going over to iRacing and just like not understanding it. I was like, holy crap, this feels so different, so foreign. I had to relearn and rewire everything, but eventually I got it. But anyway, the whole point there was I remember it not being a complete home run for iRacing.
Yeah.
In the moment. And obviously sim racing wasn't where it is today with the support and resources. So
exactly. And the thing is, and so exactly. So you're gonna, and plus
you saw the back end of that. I saw the front end of it. You saw the back end of it.
Exactly, the back end. And it was also the fact that you had to pay for this software, and people were like, what? I'm paying for this for what? So it's and paying cars? For and buying cars. Tracks. So it's like it's like why don't I just go race for real instead? Because I mean I'm joking. It was still much more expensive to race for real back then. But again, we're talking like almost 20 years ago. So like the price of doing stuff
back then. Maybe DLCs were a thing, but I don't know. I can't remember.
No, exactly. And it was quite so. Yeah. So basically, the first time where I saw the whole sim to reality thing that really got me like really into it was when we were I think it was at Sebring in 2000. I want to say it was Sebring 2009. And so we were touring with this team, this Star Mazda team called Kester Racing. And they were out of Texas, and they were basically, we had a deal with them where we got to put the sim rig in their trailer, and it was kind of bringing people over to their trailer and all that. And so but it was cool because you had this dynamic where, you had like American Le Mans there, right? So you had, this was back in the diesel days, right? When LMP1 was running diesels. So it was kind of cool because you had all these cars at the track, and you had like the Audi R10s, I think they were at the time, like TDIs, like whipping by on the track, doing their practice session. So it was the first time that I had been like at a racetrack with all this stuff. And then I see these drivers coming in and stuff. And it's like, I look at it now and I'm like, oh, these are the people now that I see. Like there was even then, like a lot of times we were in Florida because that's where the company was based out of. And we would go to like performance racing industry. And like, there was guys like, I remember Alexander Rossi getting into the sim, and he was like still in Formula BMW at the time. And he tried it and he was like, oh my God, what is this? Like trying this out. And then we had guys, I remember one guy in Star Mazda, and that's where I really saw that sim to reality was going to become a thing. Was that he was qualifying for, and you know what, I'm saying Sebring, but this was actually a little later in the season at VIR. So I'm going to actually skip over to that. But he was basically at the trailer, and we had been to a few races with the sim, and he knew the Kesters really well. So he'd come over and he would get in the sim and he'd drive. And then, so of course they were running Star Mazda on the sim, Star Mazda in real life at the same time. So he starts going around this track in the sim, and then he's going out there. So he goes out, tries a few things, does this wicked lap. Everybody's like, oh wow, like that's amazing. Then he goes out in real life and he just like, he has an off. He's like, damn, like I tried this in the sim, I thought it was going to work. It didn't work. So it's kind of scared himself a bit. Gets back in the sim.
First time at VIR?
This was like, I think his first time at VIR. It was.
Tough track.
Yeah. And so he does this. Then anyways, later on, does it again. Practice like in FP2. Then comes to qualifying. Okay. Tries a couple things in the sim, goes out qualifying, gets pole.
Oh, no way.
In real life. And that's where I was like, and then he admitted, he's like, I tried some things in the sim that I wouldn't have tried in real life, but because I did, I was then able to kind of like find the balance between the two, and boom. Yeah. So that's where, you know, I saw like, I'm like, oh man, like that's so there
Just
then.
shrinking the gap to what he thinks the limit is
Yeah.
by using his experience on the sim. He also found the limit accidentally a few times, but
Yeah.
okay, it
But
just shrunk the gap between
yeah,
what you would organically find out once you land and get there versus having some seat time beforehand.
exactly. And you got to remember too, back then, right? It wasn't that sophisticated.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
had to
even
pay for
better
tracking,
now.
right? You had to pay to get there to test anything, and those days were quite few and far between.
Yeah,
So
they were. It's exactly
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's pretty much how like it evolved. And then I had, you know, I had the opportunity to have some really cool people in the sim. Like I had, like at one of the performance racing industry shows, I actually got Nigel Mansell in the sim, which
Oh,
was
no way.
crazy. Yeah. And I didn't even know it was him because I'd seen old pictures where he had like a mustache. And it's only when he gave me his business card afterwards,
Those
I'm like,
PRI shows are crazy for
yeah,
the
I'm like,
YouTube
Nigel
roaming
Mansell, oh my
around
God.
there. Yeah,
Like, that's so
yeah.
cool. And then even I remember Ashley Freiberg being at some of the races when she was still racing Skip Barber cars. And like, it was, you know, just so many of the people that are in racing now or that, you know, were prominent in like the 80s 90s. Like I got to meet some people, even actually one of your bosses, Ron Fellows, he actually, I think our simulator was the first simulator he ever jumped in, and that was at Sebring, I think in '09.
Right,
And he
right,
actually
right.
did really well. He was like, I'm not really into it, guys, but I could sort of tell he kind of was. He was in it and he was actually doing pretty well. And it was the Porsche Cup, you know? So
Cool.
it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to see like how much it's evolved, people trying it and stuff like that, and to what it is today. So fast forward to today. Um, basically, like I'm not as big into sim racing as you guys. Like I don't get into these big competitions like what we're going to talk
Mhm.
about later with the coaches like Pecna, all that, or practice weekly. But I just love cars. I love racing. So for me, you know, getting together with you guys, doing something for the community, something that just really was like something I wanted to do. So
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. I think looking back for me, like the you said for you it was a bit more of a love of cars, and you know what? Like for what's interesting for me is I felt like someone asked me like why do you do this not long ago. I can't remember how they worded it, but they worded it in a way that actually reminded me that the main purpose I stuck with it was the fact that I'd watch NASCAR over the weekend. I'd watch every single race, trucks on Friday, Busch on Saturday, and the Cup on Sunday. I tried to watch like V8 supercar racing and stuff back with like Jamie Whincup and all those guys and Mark Winterbottom and watching those guys duke it out. And the attitudes of the cars made me just so hungry for more. And I was like, that the only way I could replicate that wasn't through a controller. I was obsessed with the art of driving, like trying to manipulate something with the pedals and the steering wheel to 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 a vehicle and then perform. I thought that was a crazy thing. So I was obsessed with it, but I couldn't like karting wasn't cheap, and it's like I can't like we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so like karting was kind of out of the question. I was a teenager or I don't know, a kid. So the closest thing I is my bike. I can't go out there and start ripping up the streets and stuff. So it's either karting or sim. So then I was like that obsession with trying to replicate what we're watching on Sundays was purely about driving. I can't even really say I was obsessed with cars or tinkering with them. That part never really like interested me. I didn't really like back then. I didn't really want to get my hands dirty. That's certainly changed over time, but I just wanted to go and find the limit of something and just enjoy being at the limit because the attitudes you could see to me in a stock car was more than I was able to see in the open wheel car at the time. Maybe now I see things a little differently, but the way the body roll just trapped. I was like, I can't look away. This is amazing. So that obsession with like trying to find time, and there's always someone faster than you, and like you're on the computer and you're sweating, you're just like, where is the time? How do I do this? That for me acutely is what, and it still is the like today. I don't know. Like sometimes it bugs me to casually get into something. I want it. It needs to be competitive, and I need to put time into it, and I need to prep. And then when I get to something, like I'm not a rocket or anything, but when I get to something, I want to feel like at least I was close to what my limit is in the moment. But it's never been just about cars. I think it's been more the obsession of driving and less about and I think like an acute obsession over motorsports in particular ways, like never down the open wheel route that much. I didn't really find it all too interesting. I liked IndyCar. I didn't really follow F1 too much. So it was more like IndyCar, NASCAR, V8 Supercar, whenever I could catch one. Shout out to British Touring Car Championship. Loved that stuff growing up. That was wicked.
Yeah.
That's basically what kind of like inspired a lot of the racing organizing that I did. But that the specific goal of driving was like I could have said at like 10 or 12, 13 years old that my career needs to be in driving of some kind. I need to teach, I need to coach, performance driving, something like that. So hopefully that's on the horizon for me in the future, but that's what kept the passion alive. And then obsession for motorsports. But that's about who we are, isn't it?
That's it. Simple as that.
I think you covered something there that's really interesting, like the team we've built. I think we talk about that real quick before we jump into everything else, which is pretty much what we are, direction that the program is going into. So the team is I've started at least the project. I don't really know where the ceiling might be, because the ceiling is very, very high and very, very far. I think in the future, honestly, at this point, we've seen so much growth lately that I don't really know if it's too far in the future. But regardless, there's me. Then there's you're sort of my co-creator. I don't even know what to call you.
Yeah, co-creator, something like that. We don't have to put a label to it.
You're gonna wear a few different hats. We got Jordan, who helps us. Jordan and Nathan, who kind of help us run and develop the Discord. We got Xavier, David, those two. Jordan also runs a series for us. So those three guys help us kind of keep things in check for the racing series that we run. We got the coaches. We got Christian, who just jumped on board, Christian Menez. We got Charles Etienne Boucher, Jean-Edouard Mayu, or however you say that. He came through the promo, funny enough, a few years ago. He's got a really interesting story. And then George, I think, was our first coach.
Yes. Yeah, he was the first coach. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think there's probably a few more. We got Amar, who helps us out with video review. Jacob, who helps us out on the stock car side. Am I forgetting anybody?
I can't forget Cameron too, who helped with some videos, put some stuff through. Yeah, Cameron.
Yeah. Oh my God, we got so much to cover. Yeah. Right. Forgot about motorsports games. But yeah, so that's the team. And essentially, if we were to talk briefly about what we are. So like we talked about 2 years ago, started with my buddy reaching out from so my buddy Eric. I raced with him 10 15 years ago, and back when he raced in what I think is was one of the most competitive sim racing groups on the planet at that moment in time. I can't even Touring Car Pro Series, something like this. It was a huge European group of extremely talented and dedicated people of all skills and age ranges. There's so much talent that came from there, and they've all split into certain, and they're all their own leaders in the industry now. It's crazy to think about how much talent on the track and in the industry that's come from that, both in real life and in the sim racing industry. But he got me just in touch with ASN Canada, and then Elise is the one who runs the show for the ASN. It's a very, very small group. We only have a few employees, and then the goal is, just honestly, to make it simple, it's to simply elevate the competitive ceiling and contribute to the development of the sport. It's essentially what our job is. At the moment, since we started with nothing, without that promo that the FIA and iRacing have given to these nations to work with, I don't know if me and you are chatting today, man.
No, it's true.
I just thought about that. That wouldn't have happened. Very interesting. I just that thought just came to my mind for the first time organically right there. But well, think about it. Like, if we didn't have that promo, we don't have a 3,800 person Discord. We don't have funds. We don't. The fact that the FIA fought for that and iRacing's whole goal of this campaign, and however long they're going to keep running it for, is grassroots initiatives and activation. We don't have this. So now that we started a few years ago with nothing, no presents, nothing. So I started running the promotion on out of an inbox with $10. I couldn't price it any higher than that because we had just, what else do we have to offer? Motorsports UK offers it for like $60, but they got partners. They have how many hundreds of employees? They got tons of revenue streams. Commercial product, memberships, licenses. Like they got everything for you. Tons of resources, communities, that all kinds of stuff. And we had nothing. So we started running the promo. Then we started to enforce that a Discord join was going to be part of the promo, and since we'd done that, it has finally turned into something. And now we're actually able to. We started with, like you said earlier, community league. Then that turned into a development league once we got lap guides and coaches going into it and starting to follow iRacing official and giving people a place to race here. And then, all right, now that you made your mistakes here, go back out into official and see if you could chip away at your rating. And then now that's grown to, we got 4 racing series, we got 2 development leagues. The road one is always filled with 35, 40 people. The stock car one, that it's in its first iteration, so we're starting off okay with 10, 15, 20 car grids. And then we have the challenge series that runs every Monday, where we use the F4 and then some GT4s and TCRs, which is pretty crazy because I don't think a year ago we had anything on track. So that's where we're sitting. We have services. You can come into the Discord. You can race with us. You can kind of reach out to our support team. Nathan does a good job of helping people out with any kind of like software, hardware support. We got some members in there that'll take care of it for you too. Like we have like a nucleus inside the community that like will just take care of you. Sometimes they beat us to it. Like they'll tag us like, hey, this guy needs help with the promo. Hey, this guy's spamming the Discord. Whatever's happening, like they're on it. We've got like 5 or 6 guys that do that in there. Guys and girls, like there's good representation in there. They take care of themselves. Lots of helpful folk in there. A good split too. We're like half and half. We're not all Canadian. There's bunch of different countries in there, but lots of Americans in there as well. We've been trying our best to support them, through getting into stock car racing and just giving them a place to race as well. So we got video review, we got coaching review. We're starting off with some pretty like soft, group coaching sessions. Our first one's going to be tomorrow night. We were doing hot laps lap guides for a while until all the the coaches got tied up with their Porsche competition, which we'll talk about in a bit. But man, like this really something now. So that's what we have going on. Obviously, we could go on and on about what the goal of the program is going to be in the future, but you can imagine just based off of what we spoke about so far, contributing to the growth of the sport in the country in whatever way we can. If we want to start connecting with more universities, we've already had some organic connections start already, and college esports programs and high school esports programs. These things are all starting to actually manufacture interest, organic interest now, and they're starting to become translatable, to real life. And that's another connection we want to make. We want to connect people to not just like esports teams and esports setup providers and builders and coaches and development services. Like show them where the local tracks are, because that's what I would have wanted when I was a teenager. Like, where do I go to like start doing this? There's no like place for me to go to find this info, or at least I didn't know of any. So we want to try to connect people to sim racing opportunities and services and the industry in Canada, but we would also like to bridge the gap between the rigs that we're sitting in and real life. What can you do? Well, you can certainly start off as an official or a steward or a track marshal or some kind of volunteer at the track. That usually gets you in. You start making connections, and then you meet team owners and drivers and mechanics and the telemetry guys and marketing people, and then the ball starts rolling. And then to speaking with collegiate programs, well, then we can start bridging the gap to like, well, yeah, this is translatable. What you apply on the sim can translate into real life, and here's the margins and the restrictions that you'll always be kind of like working with, and The margin between what's on the sim and reality is continuing to shrink. It's really close. So you're always going to have some form of accuracy there. So there's connections with local racing teams that we can make, and this is all part of like what we want to do in the future. And just give people like a map of like, all right, well, if you're in the Toronto area, here are some of our commercial partners and manufacturers and sim lounges and the colleges that have esports programs and universities and all that stuff. That's hopefully what we're trying to replicate nationwide. That's hard though because it's huge.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the goal of all this, I think, if in short form.
I think this might be a good time too to announce, because we never really talked about it other than me and you, but that we are actively starting the foundation of what we are going to call the Canadian Guide to Sim Racing, which will be, videos, articles, all basically a combination of media that will help people who know little to nothing about sim racing, who go, you know what, I want to get into motorsports. It's way too expensive to do it in real life right now. How can I get started? How can I get noticed and start to learn about it? And we're going to start from square one. So it's going to be like, this is where you go to get started, like on a budget, just starting out, not have to invest in a $10,000 sim rig day one, just, from the ground up, really keep that sort of that grassroots, base that like the FIA wants to put forward as well, like with all these programs, like with the iRacing promotion. Really stick to that and make it easy for Canadians and anybody else around the world who wants to read the guide to start in sim racing.
Yeah, we need to I mean, you've just discussed this so many times, but we need to get into the business of helping them. It's funny because I don't know how much I've spoken about it from this point of view, but from someone who's just done it for so long and just cared about it for so long, I tend to really lose touch with the newbie. And it's funny because it's all that motivates me. And then that's right. To me, it was automatic because I was a motorsports person. So I just saw what was on TV and was like, all right, that's the culture. On to the sim I go. That's the way it is. That's the on-track respect. It's the expectations. It's how racing works. Racing is structured. But I think what I tend to lose grasp of is not everyone who is in sim racing is like a motorsports junkie. They're new to it. They're still in the motions of learning about it. And I think what's really interesting with the community we've built is like so many of them, we ran a survey, like half of them are brand new to sim racing, and they might even just be new to the sport. Like we call it the drive to survive effect, where it's true. It's really done. It's trickling into sim racing. So you start by watching it and you're like, well, I want to go do that now. So then you start with like Gran Turismo usually.
Exactly.
Like for me, it was whatever that dirt oval game was. I don't even remember what it was, but like Gran Turismo played a huge role. Like that was the first real simulator I think most of us drove on. And then I think at some point I get sick of using the controller because it's like, this isn't realistic. Why the hell do I want to do this? And then I want to go grab it by the wheel. I want to do this. I want to feel what the car's doing. And it's like, look at what we have now. You can get like solid aluminum frames. You get motion rigs and like VR. And you can get like these things that go along the back of your seat that kind of give you like vibration and sensation that you're moving around and all this stuff.
I started when I started sim racing. I'm not trying to age myself here, but it's just it's what was available at the time.
You're gonna end up doing it.
I know. I had a CH Virtual Pilot Pro. Okay, it was essentially a yoke to fly airplanes with a gigantic rudder pedals for the gas and brake. Okay. That was it. I used to do IndyCar, NASCAR on that.
You raced with that.
I raced with that. Yeah. Up until I got a G25, and that was like a game changer. That was and then from there I got into Fanatec products and all that. But it was
the G25. The G25 you could flip the H pattern between, right? You could do that, right? You could flip the switch and then it was sequential.
Yep, you can, exactly. You could do that, and it was great. And actually,
I remember when I had a G27, and I was like, I don't even want this shifter. I want to get a G25 because everyone was like, yeah. Get the G25. It's a tank. It's never going to die on you. It's the Toyota Corolla wheels. And the fact that they could switch that, I was like, I want that. I didn't like paddle shifters. I like to reach over and bangs.
actually shipped, exactly. And it was one of the first ones I remember seeing it at Future. It was like Future Shop at the time. That's how long ago it was.
Gosh, Future
and
Shop,
it was at Future Shop, and I remember they had it there on display, and I would spend like 10 minutes there. It's like going to Toys R Us and being in the aisle with the cars when you're a kid, and you're sitting in the electric cars.
Drive on the OG,
yeah,
the G25,
the OG G.
Yeah,
I had it. Yeah,
I had some Thrustmasters. I think. Oh, I had the Logitech Momo. I don't know if you ever saw that one. Momo, spelled MOMO.
Yeah.
It had kind of like an old school, almost like the wheel that Nathan has. Remember the wheel that
he
got?
Yeah.
It kind of looked like that a little bit, and it was heavy. Like, I don't even know if it was belt driven. It was, you'd turn it would make a winding noise, but there was a weight in the wheel, and the weight was like perfect for oval racing. For me, it just felt so good in the hands. It was small, but it was thick. I raced on that for so long. Then I went through my first few wheels with Thrustmaster. That was not good. I'm pretty sure it was Thrustmaster. I went through 2 wheels in 6 months with them. It was really, really strange. Both motors died. One of them was super weird. I was racing on VHR, or maybe it was even iRacing. And I remember coming off the corner in, I think it was Michigan, and my right rear tagged the wall, and the motor just blew up on the wheel. It just made this huge explosion noise, and I was like, "What the heck was that?" And I moved the wheel, and it was like, and I was like, "That's not good."
That's
so. Then after that, I went to the G27, and I spent, oh my gosh, like 10 years. Like, I was racing against Charles Etienne Boucher in that old. Remember that series I told you that I really like racing with the late model stock? I raced against Charles there, and I was driving on VR with the G27 still. That was the last year, I think, of me driving on it. Then I upgraded to my Moza setup now. So that G27 is an absolute tank. Does not die. No. Takes so long, so much abuse before it finally starts to age. Absolute tank.
Love those. Absolutely love those. Yeah, it's fun to think back on what we had and what there is now and stuff. And
yeah, I keep forgetting that I spent so much time on the Momo. I wish I could pick one up. It would be nice to pick one up again somewhere just to like feel it.
Just to have it. Exactly. Yeah.
Power up.
Nathan will probably get one at some point. So
yeah, I want to power up some old games and like drive on it with the old wheel and see if I can get some of that muscle memory back. I'm sure it'll be in there somewhere. So, all right. So we've covered most things here. I was kind of thinking we would dive a little bit into the leagues.
Yeah, let's go.
We haven't missed anything, right?
No. We got everything. No, exactly. It's we got a packed agenda. The coaches are going to be coming on shortly. But yeah, let's go. Let's go here with whatever you had in mind for this.
Yeah, I'm thinking we could probably finish off by, and I kind of want to cover there's something really interesting to talk about in not the last 3 months, but the last 6 or so months. So we just covered that a year ago. We didn't have any on-track products. Nothing to offer, really. I think I started to get people in the Discord finally and started to build a community, and I just really wanted them to land somewhere that was like meaningful.
Yeah, because it was mostly a chat room when it started. And it was about more just sharing kind of links and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah, that's what it was. Now, I guess I don't want to jump too far ahead. So back in the summer, we launched Community Race Night, which turned into the Development League, because I think I was like slowly starting to pick up on the fact that like, okay, some of the people we're getting through the promo are like veterans, and they race casually, and they aren't hyper competitive, but they're veterans. They know how to set up hardware. They know, and they've been around the industry for a while. And there was a serious gap down to and there was brand new to sim racing people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting that there are people much younger than me who are brand new, and they are like, I'm starting to get old, and that there's like people who are like, hey, I've just started watching Formula One. Oh my gosh. That's right. People live outside this sphere. Like, I'm always in my own like bubble, right? So that was like okay, I need to do something to help these guys out. So I started to try to turn it into a development space. And the way that I thought about it was trying to replicate or recreate officials, putting our own twist on it, and saying, let's give them not a ladder to climb, but like a format that'll help them sort of go over to officials and then make it a cakewalk. Like they're ready to go to war over in officials. I don't know what your experience is with racing and rookie officials and iRacing, but
it's some experience. Like I said,
terrible.
I did it last time in 2020 because that was like when I went from
Okay.
because I raced in officials when back like way back. I don't even know if it was called
Right.
officials then or whatever. It was just whatever you went in and
Right.
did. That was back in
Whatever
oh
that
08, oh
was.
09. And then I jumped in 2020 and the rookie I went into MX5 Cup and I had fun, went through the
Oh, yeah.
rookies, but man, like there was some nasty people in there and there was
Oh,
some
yeah.
like just a lot of animosity and stuff, and you're like, whoa. So just getting through, and that's why like I always say, like, we talk about I rating and all this, and you're like, I rating is like a measure of skill. It's a measure of skill, but it's also a measure of how lucky you are at avoiding wrecks. That's like
Mhm.
that's really a lot of what it is too, right? So
Officials is all about
yeah,
starting is all about
yeah,
survival, and
yeah.
it doesn't really go away. Um, Sometimes it does not go away when as you move up. I think sometimes as you move up, you kind of start looking at, do I want to keep doing officials, or I got to be selective about when, because if it gets too crowded, like with anything, like if me and you went to the karting track tomorrow and there's 40 people there, well, all right, yeah, we're gonna run into some boneheads, but if there was only 12 or 15, it's gonna be hit and miss, and then we're gonna have some good battles. So just like with anything, timing matters, but like yeah, I remember trying to get through rookies, and that was the hardest challenge, was to just get out of rookies. It was like, okay, I really can't. Um, Performance, it meant nothing. I wanted to go out there and be the best and just prove my speed. And since you're kind of there and you start in rookie officials, like you're kind of mixed in, like you're gonna get all kinds of people. Sometimes they're gonna be worth 6 or 7K, but they're just starting. Or who even knows now about Smurf accounts and all that stuff? That's not a rabbit hole. But anyway, you're not going to be alone. There's going to be someone faster than you. So, and then I started realizing, oh, all right. So going up to the front, driving to my limit, and then getting off tracks and running into cars. Okay, so that doesn't work. So it doesn't really. So I learned pretty quickly, like, okay, just stay out of the mess. So let everyone else go do their thing. And even if you run P7 and you get a clean finish, you're starting to chip away. And then you just want to get up into D and then be able to get into the larger variety of series. And then at some point, once you reach D, it doesn't disappear, but there's a significant improvement. You get access to more series. And I thought, like, it was really hard for me to understand that when I started. I kind of learned it the hard way, and it was like, okay, so my rating is dropping. I'm getting dumped every time I go out on track. Okay, I'm just gonna stay out of people's way, run my own races, try to observe around me. And I had all this experience coming into iRacing, so I feel like I was able to use my peripherals and just understand. All right, this guy in my mirror is doing. He's lunging every corner. He's not past me yet, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go wide this next corner, let him go, and then sure enough, sometimes a few laps later, he sends it off, and you're like, all right, cool, got the position back. So there's even people out there, Kev, right, where they go into rookie officials and they don't even have that awareness yet. They haven't built that yet. They're learning about sim racing and rookie officials, and they're just getting like like a fire hose, just like unloading in their face of, okay, I can't handle this. So anyway, that's what contributed to the start of the development league. Once I noticed the huge gap, right, and so that was last summer. It was a bit discouraging for a while. I think there for a few months, I wasn't really seeing us retain members. Engagement was pretty low. It was slowly climbing. Um, there's a couple of people in there that I sort of think they've been around for a while. Like Joe Day kind of comes to mind. That guy's like the Discord
Oh,
secretary.
he's like
Chris
synonymous with the
Chris
chat.
Hutchinson's another one. Oh,
Yeah.
Mark Jackson, who wins all our races. Nigel Rowley now. Oh, there's too many. Bryce. There's probably more, man, that I'm not thinking about, but those guys are like, they're part of the nucleus. Um, there's certainly names that I can't think of, but there's so many people in there now. But I started noticing that there's a bit of a core group building forward, and I was like, I don't want to pull the plug on anything, but I was seriously discouraged. I was like, I just want some engagement. I just want a motor that kind of runs itself. Like, I just why isn't this work? I was like, what do I need to do? So I was like, okay, I'll get coaches coming in. I'll start doing lap guides, and I just want to start not a service, but like a trampoline. Like you'll come here, you'll land in the development league, and then you're going to bounce off into officials. And please tell me it's working. Like please tell me you've been able to chip away and up and no one actually really comes up to me and says like, yeah man, it's working. Like my rating has done this, but they do say it's like it was starting to happen where they were like, oh, this format, right? Like the format that we chose over time, which is usually the double header with a full invert. On race night, like that to me was putting people in a blender and getting them kind of used to something that they'll never see in official. So if we skip that part a little bit and jump forward to maybe the fall. So it's been a few months, and I want to say that the development league was starting to, like, we did, I don't know what we did, maybe GR86, MX5, Formula 16. I don't even remember what we did. We just jumped around between cars. And I remember it was slowly growing, 12 people a race, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then we got 15 for a little bit. And I was like, okay, there's something. I'm still not seeing the engagement. Then we ran the F4 car. And that was like, I want to say that was like November. And all of a sudden we jumped up. We had like 25 people every race. The engagement was a little higher. People were saying they were really happy with the grid size. Now it's starting to feel like more than official. Like now they're starting to learn. And I was like, all right. Yeah. I remember back in my day when I needed more cars on track so I could learn how to be stressed, like handle the stress and just being able to care about what's going on in the mirror. And like, all right, now I'm in the middle of 3Y. This didn't happen before. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be here. So you end up ducking out and watching those two wipe out. You're like, oh, that works.
All right. I'll take it.
So anyway, and that's the car that's sitting behind Kevin for anyone that's watching and doesn't know.
Yes.
Everyone in the promo gets that car for free.
Which is really cool because you're really getting for like, because the car itself is like 12, I think, well, for Canadian at least is like $12.95 plus tax, yeah. I think. So when you think about it, like even with the new promo being at $20, like you're getting a year of iRacing and you're getting the car for essentially the price of what you would pay for the car in like not even a month. So it's pretty crazy.
Trying to keep it as low as we can, and now that we're offering more and trying to automate the promo process, which is something I don't really talk about all that often, but we are trying to do that. We're trying not to move it too much. Hopefully maybe a $10 increment every couple of years is not too bad. But yeah, we're trying to keep us the best deal on the market. But
I mean, when you think about it, when you look at it and you say, hey, I'm going to play iRacing for a month, you're almost at $20 to begin with. So, that's the thing. If you're going to try it for a month,
we can never please everybody, but they always told me, like Elise and Eric, they always told me like, oh, you should have started that a little higher. And I was like, well, we had nothing. Jesus, we had nothing to start, man. Like, I just didn't think it was justified to start anything higher. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know.
No, I think you were right. But yeah,
we are where we are because of what I did.
Exactly. So going back to F4,
yeah, we'll find other ways to create revenue in the future. I think getting people into the door for that, like I would have killed for a deal like that back when I started. But
I did. Why do you think I showed up? I was like $10. All right, sign me up. Even $20, I'd sign up. It's not.
So once we ran the F4 car, we saw a huge jump in participation, good jump in engagement, and so we didn't really change much. The format was the same. I think we ran every Wednesday. We usually have a very simple format. 8 o'clock practice starts, 9 o'clock you guys qualify. I've tinkered with that format a little bit, opening up qualifying, closing it up. We'll get to that in a moment because it got pretty busy on track. But then usually the race was 20 minutes, which was longer than official. So we've changed that. But we wanted to kind of give you something that was a little bit going to touch on endurance. And then we did a full invert. So, if you finish 10th in race, and if there's only 10 cars on track and you finish 10th in race 1, well, you're going to start first in the second race, and then the leader is going to start 10th. And then obviously as the grid grew, the gap between you and the front grew. So I learned a lot racing in that format growing up. I did a lot of racing with inverts. Usually it was a partial invert, but with the grids that we had, I just did a full invert because you'll never really get an experience like that in official. And to me, it is like I just wanted to enforce that we're not even going to accept protests here. Just, it's okay. We're not going to accept anything that's intentional, but make your mistakes here. Like this, you'll just make them here so you don't make them out there. And then we're contributing. Like we're giving you a safe space to do it and to run off track. And sorry, guys, I missed my breaking point. There was a pack of cars in front of me. I missed it. Well, keep doing that. You're not going to do it in official. And then you're going to start surviving these things. And then you're going to start to translate that and chip away to P6, P5, P4. And you're eventually, but that flip, it no longer, if you're sitting at the back of the pack and you're just minding your own business, well, we light your pants on fire and go like, well, now you're going to be sweating in the second race because you got to look at everything. You're going to be using the mirrors. You're going to be using sounds, visual cues. You're going to have to adjust where your visual references are. We're also visual. Sometimes, like, I'm a drive off feel guy, so sometimes I could just feel with the vibration in my hand that it's about time for me to let off and go into this corner, and I just match it and just fly by the seat of my pants. Sometimes I have visual cues, but to be able to use your peripherals and your references and to gauge comers and goers in the pack, like that's essentially what's going to lead you to surviving in official. And then as now you're going to be ready for D and C class, being able to survive this is going to get you out there. So that was our format. We ended up doing the F4 and the MX5 to finish off the year. The grid was strong, engagement was growing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, okay, it's happening. Like I better start getting my work done. Then I don't know if you remember this, Kevin, but we did like a brief break for Christmas, and then it was time for sim racing for the kids.
Yes,
So
yes.
I wasn't there. I was going to miss the development league race. I don't miss too many of them, and we were over in Ajax. So it was me. Oh my gosh, we were all there. Me, George, Cameron. Oh my God, Cameron was there. Me, George, Cameron. Christian was there, even though he wasn't a coach with us yet. Jean and Charles. That was such a good time. And I got a text from Jordan, who was covering. He was like, "Hey man, so there's like 45 people in here." What?
I remember that. Yes, I remember that because he was freaking out and he was posting that in the in our staff Discord.
Were you talking to him?
Yes, because I was in the staff Discord. I was there for while you guys were gone.
No way.
I was there. Yeah, because I remember him going like, "Holy crap! Like this is insane."
Yeah. Well, it was huge. I remember looking down and being like, "Oh, like that was way too much." Like under the format I created, I was like, "There's no way that anyone's going to survive flipping 45 cars around." So I was like, too late now. Like we're in it. Like we didn't expect to get that. We weren't using anything to tell us that we're going to get. We haven't built this out to anticipate grid sizes, and I wasn't thinking it was just going to double overnight. So going up to, I think we hit a peak the next week. We had 45 cars or whatever that was on that first night. Jordan actually said it went like, in all things being considered, I think it was like Lime Rock Park. Like what a disaster. I'm pretty sure it was Lime Rock Park. And oh my God, it was the Formula V car. Terrible. Oh gosh, why couldn't it have been like the MX5 or something?
I know,
something
right?
close cockpit. But like anyway, so we put them all on track, 45 of them. I don't think it went super well, but like the community didn't hate it. They were like, yeah, like sign us up for this. Like we're learning. And I was like, man, they're taking care of each other. Hell yeah, like this is working. So then the next week I'm home and the server is we got 55 people in the next race. And I was like, I don't know if you knew that, Kev, but the next race was 55 people. 55
well, no, because I remember you listing out all the stats because like we were posting a lot of that stuff in some of the staffs and stuff, and it
blew my mind. And I was like, okay, now I gotta start thinking of partial inverts, splits, and then people were like, no splits, we want to race with one another. And I was like, okay, no splits, fine. And then they were like, no partial inverts, I want to do the full invert. And I was like, oh, okay, so let's just let the V series run. And I had this whole plan. I drew this whole plan for the whole year. We're going to slowly work them into faster cars because I was thinking, okay, maybe we have 20 people a week now. Like that's great. Let's chip away at this progressive calendar and see if we could do something. And we went. I don't know what I ended up with. It was the Formula V, the 1600, the MX5, the M2, then the Radical. I was kind of contemplating like SR10 or SR8. They're both beasts, but In hindsight, I probably should have chosen the SR10, but I went with the SR8 because I think it's free. And then we were going to finish with the F4 car. So the point was to kind of get you towards the F4 car at the end of the year. Now let's fast forward. We're 3 months in. We had just started our second season, but by the end of this first season, we'd averaged 40 people every single race,
which is amazing.
Like, which is huge.
Yeah.
And like the fact that the demand has stayed, I was like, all right, we're doing something right. Like something's working. I was asking a lot of questions, posting a lot of post-race comments, trying to do post-race reviews and video reviews. And okay, things are like, and then over the last 3 months, engagement's been through the roof. The nucleus has grown or tripled or quadrupled in size. The guys in there, the guys and girls that are in there, take great care of themselves and of each other. If you listen to race day chatter, there's the occasional slip up. But if you compare it, Kevin, to go compare it to iRacing official and how freaking nasty that could get. There's 40 of them in there. And for the most part, everyone takes care of each other. And if they make mistakes and if they say something stupid, they're usually apologizing for it shortly after. They cool down and they go back in the chat and they're, my bad, I was a little hot. I'm taking this seriously, which I take a lot of pride in. They're racing here and they're taking this seriously, right? So
absolutely. And I think it's because it's created a sense of community. So when you're learning within your community of people, you kind of see them as more than just some random people. So now all of a sudden you're like, hey, if I'm, and that's what I love about what it's created is that you're not going to be like, oh, I'm never going to see these people again, so I'm just going to, go say whatever and then I'm gone. No, because they know I'm going to see these people every week. So everybody starts to know each other and it just creates this really cool dynamic between everybody. And I love that.
That's a good point. There's that's a perspective I don't really consider, I think, all that often, and I should. But I'm glad you said that because I'm sure that they feel the same. And I think there's a lot of evidence to prove that you're pretty much bang on there. When I first discussed splitting the grids, they're like, no, I want to race with my friends. Oh shoot, people are becoming friends in here. Look what's happening. Oh man. I guess I just didn't, you know what this is too? It's like this weird imposter syndrome. Like it's not real yet. I can't take the growth that we've seen and think that it's real yet. And then 3 months of consistent, the nucleus grew. People were taking care of each other. We got 20 to 30 regulars. There's tons of people coming and going. Community discussion and forums and votes have been going well. We finished the season with, I think, 90 total drivers. That was more than double what we had in the final season of even if you combine the final 2 seasons of the year, the F4 car and the Mazda, they didn't even, I don't think they added up to 60 drivers, and we had 90 in total over almost the same amount of time. So all that to be said, I scrapped the idea of what I initially rolled out, which to me didn't feel great to scrap what I didn't love the idea that I scrapped my 6 season 2 month plan. And there was a reason for this. Now I noticed that I was going to miss the alignment of the iRacing seasons because they operate by quarter and I was dividing it up into 6. So I'd constantly end up with that 2-week buffer. So I tested the theory and I said, it'll all go status quo if these next 2 weeks don't work out. And those 2 weeks for me were the off week between that and week 13 and then week 13. And in the off week, I decided to test some theories out as I was typing up documents in the past. You should have seen all the hours I had accumulated on the project because it was kind of steady. And then all of a sudden I had all these hours that I was logging and I was like planning and writing down ideas and building formats and like, all right, I'll probably end up throwing this out, but maybe I'll go with this one. And I was like, I just want to be ready so that I could decide on if I'm keeping something or if I'm adding something. Because to be honest, I don't know if we could really sustain a learning environment with 40 cars on the track. I was like, I can't see another 50 car grid. I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if it's too big or if people enjoy that. We're going to need we need to support them more if the grid is that big. But then I look at people like Swaleo Academy and they do it. So I think
exactly. And you know what? The way I see it is if people are showing up week after week, it's because they're loving it.
They want it. Yeah. I think I get into my own head on that, but I still thought it was too much pressure on the development league. I just was like, there's too much on this. We need to give them more. There's clearly enough talent in here. The spread is so wide that we could let the true amateurs race in the development league so that they could kind of learn together and race amongst people on the same development path, at the same part on the development path, or on the same part of their timeline. But now looking at it, it's like I kind of like that we have some guys in there that blow them out of the water at the front, because you're starting to see the gap between the guys that are rockets and the dev guys. Like, that's starting to shrink, which is really rewarding to see.
And
But anyway, I went.
yeah.
Oh,
One of the
go
big
ahead.
things too, just because you're talking about that, yes, there is a gap sometimes between first place and last place. But with the development league, what's fun is that it's less about where you finish and more about you win when you have the least incidents possible,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that's
Well, we
where,
should touch on that in a moment,
yeah,
because I've come up with a creative
yeah.
system that not everyone loved, but I certainly like it. But I did like where you were going, though. I think it is less about where you finish and more about what you learn, and that you could take that and you can go apply it. Honestly, I would love to hear from them if it really has. And I know that we hear from the regulars, but I'm always thinking, what about the people who don't say anything? Where are those guys at? Are you still working? Have you come and gone from the development league because it worked, and
Well,
now you're ready for
comment
something
below,
more?
guys. If you're watching
Yes,
this,
yes,
just put a comment in the
please.
video.
So
Let
eager
us
to
know.
hear what you guys say.
Yeah.
I try to read as much as I can on the top half of the Discord. On the bottom half, I can't keep up with all that, but on the top half, I try to keep as up to date as I can. But going into that off week, I had the most I've ever documented in my life. This whole job is just documenting stuff and like writing formats and rule sets and like, what am I going to do? And so we tested some cars. So we tested the F4 car. We tested a bunch of different things: the GT3, GT4, cross car, rain racing, the whole thing. And I was like, okay, I didn't really see a whole bunch of faces come and go. I was like, all right, I think this is a malleable, grid, if that's the right word to use. Like, they could bend and flex to the cars that we challenged them with. And I was coming up with this concept of the challenge series, that we're going to tighten up restrictions on incident points and timing, and we're going to correlate it again to maybe D to C or C to B class racing, because I feel like the development league kind of prepares you for the first two. Then we're going to try to prepare someone else, someone who may have been advancing or may have been a bit more experienced, give them something to really push their own limit in, so give them a place to race. We were testing cars, and then we had week 13. And like week 13, people loved it. The engagement was through the roof. We were just goofing off all week. We gave some staff their own nights and started community kind of voted in their own things. And I was like, okay, so aligning with the iRacing season is going to work. Like, having week 13 together, I think, is a great idea, and just like letting the community kind of vote in their own things. Me and you could get selfish one night, and I don't know, we could do skippies around Bristol or something. Like, who
Absolutely.
cares, man?
It
Like,
doesn't matter.
do like the Pro Fours around Long Beach or whatever. Like, but well, I was like, man, this is kind of working. And like, I was like, where do these people come from? Like, so 4 months ago, we barely filled an MX5 grid. I don't want to say barely, but I was like, I guess 6 months ago we had 10 or 12 people,
Yeah.
and now we're filling races that
We don't
don't.
know where to put them.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we're here, like, we have it happened. I have a community now. So I was like, okay, screw it. I'm gonna scrap the old idea, and we're gonna align with basically the iRacing uh, seasons throughout the year. And what I did was that timeline before of the V, the 1600, the MX5, the M2, the Radical, and the F4. Well, I kind of took a few of those ideas at the back end of the year and threw them into the challenge series. So for anyone who doesn't know, we have a challenge series now that has tighter restrictions on it. We're gonna slowly elevate the minimum IR required to get into it, slowly make it more competitive over time, and it runs bi-weekly, but it also rotates the calendar. So it starts off with the F4 car. The first race was, I can't remember what the first race was at. It was not at Navarra. That was our test race. Oh, can't remember. So, so yeah, we've had the first round, and then the second one was Sebring, which was the first round of the GT Challenge Series. So we have the Open Wheel Challenge Series and the GT Challenge Series. So that's kind of me taking the M2 and the F4, with the Radical being a bit of like a wild card. Honestly, Christian talked me out of using the Radical because I was like, that's a great one, right? It's a good development tool. And he was like, you're wrong. And I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, all right, scrapping the Radical. We could do it for fun if we want. We have enough people now that I think we could just fill a grid if we wanted to use it for a few weeks and have Christian or a guest come in and run the series for a bit. But I took the two that I was going to use, threw them into the challenge series and said, now we're going to give it to you here. And like I said, we're going to just tighten up the structure on the series and pressure you guys a little bit more to see who's ready for that challenge. And then we did some surveys over the week 13, and we basically saw that there was oval demand, and with how many Americans we have in there, we were like, I personally need. I felt kind of selfish. I was like, well, there's too many of them for me to just ignore them. Like this will ultimately turn into Buy Canada for Canada, but like we have to give them a place to race, so we've got to start with like, the ovals. So now we got David running the Street Stock League, and that runs weekly on Thursdays, and then the Road League is back and still running 40 cars a week with the 1600 this season. And I think the Street Stock will always be. We might flip flop between that and the Mini Stock. Kind of moving forward, we're gonna kind of see how it goes this first season. The Road League, I think, now that I've taken the two out of the back end of the schedule, I think I'm gonna go potentially MX5 and GR86, or if I was to draw something up myself, I would actually say that the MX5 is the development vehicle, period, that we just stick to. But it's hard for me to convince myself that we should stick to just one. I don't know what you think, but like, I think going back and forth between some cars, especially the stress of can't make mistakes in open wheel, because if you guys go wheel to wheel, someone's going and doing barrel rolls, and certainly won't work in real life doing that. So it's good to learn that pressure here, because like me and you both know, we could go run MX5s, so we could just bang doors,
exactly, all day.
And we're not paying the consequence of hitting tires on one another driving those 1600s. But anyway, that's the plan for the Road League, the Challenge Series. We're going to see how it goes. The GT1 runs GT4s and TCRs, and there was an interesting. I don't want to go down that road yet, but anyway, we got FIF4 and the TCRs and the GT4s running in that series. There was a lot of demand for multi-class. The TCRs were relatively well received, but there was a decision, and I think to wrap up some of the discussions here, I kind of want to pick some of the stuff apart with you as we go through each series, like what your thoughts are on stuff, and then we'll finally stop talking then. But so GT4, it was the best grid that we had in our off week, and I don't know about you, but for me, in my entire sim racing journey, the most I've ever learned about road racing came from 3 vehicles, and they were the MX5, TCRs, and GT4s. Those were the cars that taught me the most. I didn't like the GR86. I didn't like anything open wheel, but that's totally biased because I hate things that have grip, and I need something sloppy and has no downforce and all that kind of stuff. I know that those things don't have much, but it's just a weird dynamic. I don't get it. But man, I learned the foundation of my sports car knowledge came from GT4s. I jumped right into it. I didn't do a whole lot of TCRs. I just went straight from like MX5s to GT4s. And to me, it was a natural progression. I did a little bit of GR86, but I thought the GR86 felt unique. I didn't like driving it. I thought it was too sensitive, and I couldn't slide it enough, and I couldn't just drive the piss out of it and just have it reward me in that way. So I don't know what it was, probably biased.
But I think what makes GT4 unique, and I think why it's such a good like proving ground, is because you're combining weight, you're combining a lot of power with basic levels of downforce. Basic levels, I'm going to call it, right? So, because when you go from GT4 to GT3, now all of a sudden it's a downforce game, right?
Yeah.
In GT4, there's not as much. It's like pretty much a street car that's been modified to, for the racetrack. It's kind of like for some of these models.
That's where I was going to go with that. I was going to say, like, GT4, for me, if I hadn't done it, I never would have. The gap between anything else and GT3 was just insane. I don't know if GR86 would have gotten me ready for GT3s. I don't know what else. Maybe F4 if I really ever gave that a shot, but I'd never give anything with downforce a shot. I never do that.
The thing is none of those cars, GR86, F4, they're lighter, but they don't have the same
Yeah.
power, and that's the thing. You
Yeah.
don't have that high horsepower game that you're starting to play now, where the back end gets really
So let's talk about
all
something
over the
else then.
place.
So now I talked about TCRs, and I also want to allude to when I first started learning road course racing on R Factor. Now I was mostly an oval guy, but I struggled with understanding rear wheel drive in a sports car for some reason. I just wasn't able to feel anything. And with the stock car, I was always able to feel something. So the numbness that came from it, and that could have been sim dependent, wheel, whatever. But I turned to front wheel drive, like BTCC, like touring car racing. And that got me probably most of my momentum, managing momentum skills, battling, because you can't really drive away from one another. It's a lot of just like spec series stuff. So it's like, okay, well, it's down to the driver. Everything's fixed. Everything's pretty close in terms of power output and weight. Everything's usually front wheel drive. Sometimes you get the occasional all wheel drive thing, but most of them are just front wheel drive, just screamers, four bangers or whatever. And you're just driving this thing to 110% all the time. But because you're doing that, you're almost, to me it was, I was young and I was like, okay, like this thing sounds like it's screaming at me all the time, so I'm always locked in. It's never dead. It's never like wah, bah. It's just like screaming at you all the time. So you're like, oh, okay, I'm moving, but you're not moving. So to me, in the front wheel drive car, I was able to learn how to battle, set up passes, defend. And then I don't want to say I did a whole lot of it in iRacing, but in R Factor in those days, I was younger, like not as developed, not as mature, whatever. It meant a lot. And I don't think I would have done anything in a GT4 on iRacing if it wasn't for the experience I had back in the day in a front wheel drive car. And I did experience some of it in iRacing before I went to GT4. So is that just me? What do you think? Is
No,
that just me? Is that a global thing? Because that's essentially why I chose it for the Challenge Series.
yeah, I mean, when you look at it, TCR teaches you so many different things because again, you've got that front wheel drive configuration, right? You've got that whole thing where like your front wheels are doing the accelerating, they're doing the turning,
Yeah.
they're doing most of the braking because again, it's front engine cars, all the way goes to the front. It's all on those tires. So there's a really cool dynamic. It's like you're learning. You're not like doing like I guess like on power oversteer. You're doing lift off oversteer, which you can then just stomp on it to get the car straightened again. And it's all these things that you're learning. It's like all of a sudden now, if you were racing like little formula cars or MX5, now these TCRs are acting a lot different. Like you're spinning tires, there's like a lot of boost there, and like it's like, whoa, okay, what's going on? And I think it just teaches you now how to drive differently, and that's why I believe these cars are good for development league because they put you out of your comfort zone. Whereas when you start with MX5, you're learning a lot, but at some point you become stable with the car. Even open wheel, when you transition to that, has a little thing because now all of a sudden you can't bang wheels anymore, right? So there's a lot of
that made me think of something. Maybe that was just the point in my career where I was like, I could feel weight transfer now. And I feel like when I came to iRacing, the car that taught me that was the MX5. And honestly, I feel like the MX5 did a decent enough job to get me ready for GT4s. And I think the reason that I guess listening to you say that made me realize that was my way of learning weight transfer and like that lift off oversteer that always caught me off guard. I was like, oh, okay, so I need to like predict that happens. That was really
brutal
hard
too.
Then,
like I remember the first time I drove the Kia in iRacing. Oh man, I was like, oh yeah, this thing's nuts.
That sucks. Yeah, the Kia is an interesting one, but like to catch it and the fact that like you got to give it some throttle for the front end to kind of start to weave back into place. You're like, oh, okay. So this is, oh my gosh, this is like a strange limit to find. But yeah, I don't know. For me, back in those days, it was a huge tool and also incredibly entertaining to race. Like there's always like an entertainment factor. I always think that like the format that we use is just also entertaining to the driver. It's not, you're not static. You're not just like, oh, okay, I finished sixth in this race, so I'm gonna start sixth in the next one. And like, I'm not gonna move. I'm just gonna run hot laps. And I don't know, to me, there's nothing more boring than to like sit down and put all this work into a race and you're like Yeah, I passed like 3 cars today. That sucked. Like, I don't know, that was kind of boring. I wasn't like fighting for my life at any point. I'm like, I think sometimes when you're fighting for your life and you're like constantly surrounded by not chaos but controlled chaos, you're like, "Oh, this is racing. This is the good stuff." I don't know how many people disagree with me, but or agree with me, but that's that part of the format that we use is or was to put entertainment in it. And I think it's always going to be an element, but obviously, I don't know. I think at some point we'll make some changes to things. What do you think about the GT4 car as a challenger car? I was thinking about maybe jumping up to GT3, and then I wasn't sure that the grid was ready for it. But to me, the GT4. Okay, actually, funny that we're talking about this. The TCR and what it meant for me back in the day. Well, the GT4 turned into that car today. Like in iRacing, the modern version, the modern driver in me learned a lot from finding the limit in a GT4 league that I used to race in. So I don't know if you have a lot of experience with that, but what are your thoughts on the GT4 car as a development tool?
Well, the reason I think I'm in agreement with you because I find the GT4 car is where you start to get into like I'm not going to say that the other ones are not challenging because they're challenging when you're starting, but eventually, like if I take like MX5 an example, you plateau eventually. You can always have fun with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at some point you plateau, and so you're really now just competing with other people in that same sort of environment. It's spec
Yeah.
racing. But now when you get to GT4, not only do you have, like we were saying earlier, the differences with the car where they're more powerful, you can slide them around, but you also have different cars. This is where you get to sort of a series now where you have a variety. So you've got to understand that, you know, the mid-engine car is going to act differently from the front engine car, and
Yeah.
you know, you've got differences in aerodynamics, you got differences in how different
Mm-hmm.
cars respond with if they're turbocharged, if they're not. So really, when you look at all that, that throws in so much variety that I think it creates a fantastic learning environment because it's learning is often about, in my opinion, doing things that you're not comfortable with. Right, when you start doing too many things you're comfortable with, you stop
Man,
learning, you
yeah.
stop
The old,
developing.
the old
Right,
adage: you don't learn anything when you're comfortable.
exactly. So when you're
Yeah.
so the fact that it's a development league, I think the GT4 is like a perfect fit.
Not quite development, but the next step
Yeah,
up from that. Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot from it. I almost think it was a bit too far as of a step forward, but I don't know. I'm willing to see how the GT
yeah,
series goes, and I think just given our relationship with the AS, like that we're related to the ASN, which represents the FIA, I think like the F4 car is probably here to stay as that organic next step. I think you could learn a lot. I could probably learn a lot from trying to find my limit and go asking George for some coaching or something on the on the F4 car because that's kind of like his deal, him
yeah.
and Charles. But yeah, so then the street stock kind of being what it is. We had a decent start with that. I feel like coming from oval, it's a pretty decent. It's got a lot of body roll. You could feel a lot of things there. But then for the road league, I've had some mixed emotions on what's the best car to teach you. I think we could rotate the same 4 cars every year, but so personally, I said this to Christian and to everyone. I really think that it's the MX5 is the go-to development car um, that will that the driver will get the most return. Maybe not the very best in terms of a foundation because that car on cold tires. Oh, but if you can manage that thing on cold tires, you could pretty much manage any other car on iRacing with cold tires. That thing is the worst. And that platform, man, the MX5, it's a classic. It's well balanced. I
It
think it's got
is.
50/50 weight distribution, LSD in the back, like 6-speed manual. At least they used to have that. Now they're all sequential.
Yep.
You could feel the weight move around and you could hear the tires so well. I think it's best. I think it's better than any open wheel car that you get off of the base content. And I think it's better than GR86. But I've had a lot of people tell me, nah, you gotta go use the GR86. No, you should use the F4 as your development car. Oh my god, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think ultimately it depends. Now, like if you're telling me the F4 versus that, I think it depends on what you're getting into. Because to me, driving an F4 car, you're starting right away with downforce, right? So it's a different driving style. So if you plan only to do formula cars in your sim racing career,
Yeah.
whether you're doing it just for sim racing or sim to reality, whatever, to me, the F4 is where you go if that's what you're planning on doing. But if you want to get something all around, I think that for me, starting in the something like the MX5 is the better first step. Now the GR86, I can't speak much to it because I don't have any experience with it, but it's definitely I can't even say, I was going to say it's a more modern platform, but it's not, because the MX5, like you said, has caught up with the now the sequential shifting, all that stuff. So it's just that it's a slightly different car, but I think that the MX5 was always built as the when you think about a Miata and MX5, it is the car that like everybody looks at as like, when you think about like a first race car, it's cheap, it's affordable. So I think it's more relatable. If you're going to be also doing sim to reality stuff, you're probably more likely. Like, isn't I think George is doing something with MX.
Oh yeah, George. Yeah, he is racing in the Miata Canada Cup this year. Yeah, I cannot wait.
Yeah, so that's going to be pretty cool to see. So he's doing. So you look and you say, oh look, George has competed in F4. He went to Mexico.
And also, you know what? To stop you on that for a second, he made that decision because the Miata is going to give him back the best value when you compare it to what it's going to give him as a driver, the return on development and skill set and awareness and the size of the field that he'll race in, and the cost, because the cost is incredibly low in comparison to running Formula 12, 1600. I mean, there's a huge jump there, but what would you drive after that before you go into a radical or something like?
Oh yeah,
like super production challenge. Like talking strictly here in Canada, like I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Like, and karting is out of the question because it's just as expensive to do that. So,
it is anyway, exactly. Yeah.
So go bang fenders and do that on a track with 20 other Miatas, and it's just I don't know. I think that went into his decision to do that, but yeah, I think I've driven the GR86, and I'm like, it doesn't give me as much, but that's me though, and I wonder who's in the majority.
It'd be interesting.
Who needs the grip and the downforce, because I think you get a bit more downforce there, and I think it's certainly what I think is what would be the next best. But when I compare it to what it represents on iRacing and the acute, like the amount of volume that goes through MX5s, the amount of value that is placed on MX5s when you start iRacing, the amount of cars that the return that you'll get developmentally speaking off the MX5 and what it will then reapply to, I think is the widest with the MX5. Then maybe it's GR, then maybe it's Formula 16. I don't know, man. After that, like you could even get into like Super Production Challenge, which has the M2. We haven't talked about the M2 at all, but like everyone hates the M2. But
that's like that thing's an animal, man. It's like
yeah. And then you get that. You get the GR86 MX5 and the Clio. We haven't even talked about the Clio.
Oh, the Clio. That's like, I forget about that thing. Yeah, that's
I'm not sure how long ago that one came out, but there's a lot to discuss around like a good slow front wheel drive car that like sometimes I think like we should run a multi-class development league. But
you know what we should do? I'm just going to throw it out there. I think we should maybe for one of these future podcasts, maybe we should just get on the sims as we're having the podcast, and we should test out some of these cars. So we can see, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to put ourselves. Yeah, we'll have to plan whichever cars. I think the Clio would be an interesting one, and then for me and you to go head to head on like an MX5 and a GR86, just like break down what we're feeling.
Yeah,
I don't drive them much anymore. It'd be good to go back into them. The GR86 is kind of becoming more popular in terms of even a competitive car. There's a lot of like national competitions that are held with the GR86, and then the MX5 is like pure entertainment. If it's being used at a top level or at a competitive level, it is like we're going to throw a bunch of talented guys and just like, all right, it's 15 minutes. You guys go have at it. 40 of you go. And it's like, I feel like there's so much value in terms of what you could get out of an MX5 when you get a grid that knows what they're doing. But
absolutely.
Anyway, that's I don't know how I'm going to finish the season. I think we are organically moving to the MX5 after the Formula 1600, and then I don't know if I really committed to a car to finish the year off. I think the GR86, if it lines up enough, because I'm pretty sure it's a D class car. You get it for free, but it's a D class. So do I really want to do that to them if there's a bunch of newbies coming through the promotion and they're trying to actually, get up out of rookies? It doesn't really make much sense to go there. So, oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe we finish off doing Super Production Challenge. Maybe we do that. Maybe we finish with the Clios, man, or the Kias. They still use the Kia.
Oh, the Kia, man, that's
we'll go Pontiac Solstice.
Oh man, now you're digging. Holy crap! Yeah, that's OG as well. Wow.
Yeah, that was back when I first started on iRacing. I drove a lot of the Pontiac Solstice. That thing sucked. I mean, it was fun, but like, yeah,
it's interesting.
But that's pretty much what we got going on. And like, I'm conscious of time now. Like,
perfect. Well, no, exactly. And we got the coaches are going to be coming on, so we're going to have Charles-Etienne Boucher and Jean-Edouard Maillot coming on. So we will take a quick break, and then we're going to go over and talk to these guys.